Today I'm going to tell you a little story. Unfortunately, it's a story about the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and also the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've actually never really told this story to anyone. Not even my family or my closest friends have ever heard what I'm going to tell you today. It's very personal and quite painful, actually, so please forgive me if I stumble or stop for a moment. Whenever I have to speak about my work, The Unknown Soldier, the SCAR Project, Grief Camp, the Alabama Project, Naked Ladies, or any of the other photographic series that I've done over these past many years, whenever I speak about it, I always begin by saying, I started the SCAR Project when a dear young friend got breast cancer. But that's not really the truth. The truth is that something happened to me, and I thought that the first picture of the SCAR Project would be the last picture I would ever take. I'm going to circle back to that in a little bit. I've been a photographer as long as I can remember, since I was a boy. It's all I really know, all I've ever done. When I was young, I was so shy, it was painful to speak. The pictures were my voice. They could say things I couldn't say. Needless to say, I am terrified of public speaking. The irony of this moment is not lost on me here. I never went to photography school, or any school really. I just picked it up on my own. And although I had absolutely zero interest in fashion, I did have an interest in girls. So I became a fashion photographer. I mean, why wouldn't you? I was lucky. Somehow physical beauty was a language that I actually could speak, at least from behind the camera. And over the course of nearly 20 years, I worked all over the world. London, Sydney, Paris, New York, Tokyo, Iceland. You name it, I've taken pictures there. I worked constantly, passionately. My pictures appeared in all of the magazines that you see on the newsstand every day. I suppose by any measure I was a very successful photographer. But every time I was standing there on a shoot for 20 years, holding the camera in my hands, looking effortlessly in charge, there was something that no one else could see. I hated it. I hated being there because I hated my pictures. I felt like an imposter, that I didn't deserve to be there. I felt like I could give the camera to anyone, the cleaning lady, the gardener, anyone in the audience, my dog, Fred, anyone could take a better picture than me. It didn't matter how much people liked my pictures. It didn't matter what magazines the pictures were in. It didn't matter how much they paid me to take them. Nothing could convince me that I wasn't a terrible photographer. So one day, after 20 years, I just quit. Done. Finito. Oh my God, it was the best decision I had ever made. It was as if some massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Living in my little flat on the ocean in Sydney, Australia, my life became beautiful again. Months and months went by, filled with yoga, my friends, endless days on the beach. Life was amazing. Well, as it turns out, the universe had other plans for me. One night, after a lovely evening out with my friends, I returned home to my little flat on the ocean. I remember going to bed, feeling very content, only to wake up a few hours later from what seemed like a bad dream. I couldn't remember what it was, but I couldn't shake the feeling either, so I thought I would get up and make myself a cup of tea. But something drew me to my window on the ocean, where I had stood 10,000 times before, admiring its beauty. But when I got there, my beautiful ocean was gone. It had been replaced by horror, by an endless, barren burning wasteland filled with infinite, endless suffering. And as I looked upon it, I too began to burn forever. The pain, the suffering was indescribable, unbearable. This vision only lasted for perhaps 30 seconds, and then my beautiful moonlit ocean magically reappeared. But the pain did not go away. It was as if a red-hot branding iron had been placed against my brain. Yeah, you can remove the iron, but the scar remains. I had been branded. I remember thinking, surely I must be dreaming. I willed myself to wake up. I must wake up. But it was obvious. I was awake. The pain consumed me, destroyed me. It was as if my very soul was on fire. And I knew in that moment that if it didn't go away very, very soon, that I would have to kill myself. But it didn't go away. I laid on the bed, I laid on the floor, and I tell you, I do not have a religious bone in my body, but I prayed to anyone who would listen to take it away. But it seemed no one was listening. All I could think about was, how could this be happening? My poor parents, my family, this would destroy them. But the pain would not go away. In fact, it got worse. Day by day, the fire grew hotter. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, and I told no one. I was embarrassed. What was I going to say? I had a vision, and now I have to kill myself? I began to remove everything from my apartment until it was nearly empty, so that my family would not have to do it after I was gone. As it turns out, I wasn't the only one suffering. A dear young friend appeared at my door, crying. Paulina had been diagnosed with cancer, and they had removed her breast. It seemed impossible. She was only 29, young, healthy, beautiful. She had been a model, and I had photographed her many times since she was young. Now I was drawn to photograph her again. I don't know why. I had no intention. Perhaps yet again, a photograph could say what I could not. I took her to the studio. It had been a very long time since I had picked up my camera. I remember holding it in my hands. It felt warm, like home. But I knew that it would be the last picture that I would ever take. I had reached the end of my life. I felt like I had been banished to some mythical hell, and I desperately, desperately needed an angel. So I finally told a friend what had happened, and I showed her the picture I had taken of Paulina too. She looked at the picture and said, "David, just one more picture. Just one more picture." So I did. One more picture. One more picture. Then another. And another. For 15 years now, that last picture turned into a lifetime of pictures. A lifeline of pictures. Hundreds of them. Let's look at a few. It was like stepping into them, being them. And in them I saw a truth we kept hidden from the world, from ourselves. A truth of tenderness, of purity, dignity, compassion. Each frame seemed to scrape away another layer, revealing a tender, fragile soul buried within. It soothed me for a moment and allowed them to see, perhaps for the first time, who they truly were. There is an inherent beauty in humanity, a beauty that transcends the glossy images fed to us by the media. Hope, despair, love, loss, courage, fear. We recognize it instantly, this fragile beauty, the human condition. As the years went by, we evolved. The pictures evolved. There was so much trust, so much love, hope. We were just trying to keep our heads above water, trying to stay alive, and perhaps leave something behind, a picture, a reminder that we existed, in case we didn't. Unfortunately, everybody didn't stay alive. Men died, women died, many still in their 20s. Lifetimes were accelerated and then cut short. I followed them through the years, documenting the changes, hoping that the pictures would transcend the confines of war, of disease, of poverty, of abuse, and speak a greater truth. I was humbled by their courage, their grace, their trust. When I first started shooting the Scar Project, I didn't know if anyone would want to look at the pictures. They were confronting, hard to look at, dark. Yet in the pictures, people did not find darkness. They found light, hope. The images were acquired by museums and galleries around the world. The Library of Congress acquired the entirety of the Unknown Soldier series. A documentary was filmed of the Scar Project and won an Emmy Award. A book was published. Magazine articles were written in every language. Yet, it's always a yet. As wonderful as all of that is, I am most grateful for all of the messages I have received from strangers around the world. Thousands of them. They say, I'm a 20-year-old woman, a 50-year-old man, a teacher, a soldier, a grandmother. I have cancer. I was burned. I lost my legs. I was born with a disability. They say, I felt like a monster. I only get undressed in the dark so that my husband can't see me. I thought no one could ever love me. I'd like to read you a part of a letter I received. She explains it way better than I ever could. She says, I fell upon your pictures one day. The subjects were so beautiful, even though they looked just like me. I couldn't help but fall in love with them a little. And I thought, if they are beautiful and they look like me, and I can fall in love with them, then perhaps I too am worthy of being loved. I remember reading that when every day was still unbearably hard, when it took every ounce of my strength just to stay alive. I remember reading that and thinking, if I die tomorrow, I'll be the happiest man in the world. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean, all of this that I've shared with you today? I've learned so much over these many years, so many messages I wish I could share with you. Perhaps I can leave you with this. You are all very powerful. Each and every one of you will change the course of history. Every one of you already has. In every moment of our lives, in every little interaction, every thought, every gesture, no matter how seemingly small and innocuous, we quite literally change the future, create the future. The person sitting next to you has been affected by your presence, changed by your energy, forever. Who are they? The walking wounded are often invisible. What you say matters. What you think matters. The love you hold back or give freely matters. Perhaps you will give hope to the hopeless, or thought to the thoughtless, kindness to the needy, strength to the weak, or perhaps allow a man to take just one more picture. Thank you for listening to me. Mm-hmm.